Do you wonder about past lives? Have you ever thought about where your soul has been, where it's going, or what lessons and memories have been gathered along the way? In this podcast, we will discuss past life memories, psychic phenomena, energy healing, and other metaphysical topics with experts and the average person to find out how we can heal through these experiences. So I invite you to join me on my journey. Welcome to the Regression Session.
I have a dog also.
How's your yard?
That's terrible.
Yeah, see? Welcome back to the Regression Session. My name is Ian. Welcome to the Regression Session. For any first-time listeners, thanks for tuning in. We love you. I'm back doing interviews. I know it's been a long time, but I'm trying to get back into the swing of things. I was gone for a year doing divorce stuff. Fun. But that means I'm kind of out of content. And because of that, here's what I'm thinking. I want to do 3 free past life regressions, and it's pretty much going to have to be first come, first serve, or at my discretion. The only caveat is if you want me to do a free past life regression session for you during this offer, I guess we'll call it, I need to have your permission to record it, obviously, and then edit it and upload it to my whole show. So if that sounds like something you would be interested in, shoot me an email. It's theregressionsession@gmail.com. This week, we're going to be hearing from Nicole, and Nicole is a QHHT practitioner, which is a form of past life regression hypnosis. And we talk a little bit about the actual process of that, the benefits of it, and I play devil's advocate a little bit. So that's interesting, and here we are. Hey, Nicole, thanks for coming on to the show.
Hey, Ian, thanks so much for having me. I'm looking forward to the talk.
Me too. I've been really excited and nervous because, like I was just telling you, it's been a while since I've had a guest on. But before we get too much into it, if you wouldn't mind just telling my audience a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background, whatever you want to share, whatever you feel is relevant, and then kind of what brought you onto the show.
Okay, sure. So I'm Nicole Cambies, and I am 43 years old. Primarily came onto the show today to talk about the Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. I am a practitioner. I live in New Jersey, a little town called Atlantic Islands, and actually I've been here pretty much my whole life. I worked prior to this. I was very much in corporate America. So my dealings, let's say, with the spiritual side of life is newer in the career aspect of looking at it. Personally, I've, researched and been a believer and a skeptic at the same time over the years. But from a career standpoint, it is a newer endeavor that I was guided to. And I'm looking forward to sharing a little bit about that today.
Yeah, it's really interesting. That's not the first time that I've heard that similar kind of a story of I was in corporate America. I was in a big marketing firm. I was a personal trainer, right? I've heard all these things and they're like, but then I jumped right into this hypnosis stuff because I was drawn to it. My question to you is, did you check out any other modalities before jumping into QHHT, or did QHHT, was that like your first choice?
From a career aspect?
Or just like, no, not the career, but like as like a practice or whatever.
So I think Um, well, the short answer is yes, it actually is my first modality that I jumped on board to start this as a career. I explored in terms of like research and people that I've met along the way. Um, other things that are out there healing. There's shamans out there, there's mediums out there, there's tarot card readers, like all of those type of things. um I won't say that won't come up in my career path, but that seemed to be more growth that I need to do spiritually. So QHHT kind of came towards me, and I really feel strongly that it was guided from the universe, because at the time of my life that it came my way, I could say that I was basically going through several tower moments of my life. And I knew nothing about this particular technique. And all of a sudden, the founder of it, Dolores Cannon, started to come into my world. And she kept popping up and kept popping up. And eventually, I just finally said, okay, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to listen and I'm going to research. And um, it led me to QHHT. I mean, she speaks about a lot of things, but her biggest contribution and a lot of things that she knows about is from her work in quantum healing hypnosis.
And how long have you been a practitioner of QHHT?
So, an official practitioner, a year. I've been doing this for about 2 years. Where we're 2024, right? So about 2 years now, I started studying and I went through my internship, and I completed it, and I received my uh, promotion, if you will, to officially being a practitioner.
Okay. And just for my audience's sake, for anybody out there who does not know what QHHT is, that's an acronym for Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. It was invented by a woman named Dolores Cannon, and she used it to primarily perform healing therapy, but she also was able to get some really really interesting information. If you look up in the books, oh shoot, I forget what they are.
The convoluted
Yeah, the convoluted
universe.
universe. I got
Mhm.
to like I think book 3 or 4 of that before it was just a little too much to keep listening to because they're massive books, and it's
Mhm.
basically just conversations that she would start with one client and then it would carry over through multiple clients, and it was just super super interesting. If you're interested in that kind of work, definitely check out the Convoluted Universe series, but I will give a warning to those of you who want to listen to it. It really is convoluted. That the series name is not it's not misleading at all. So my question to you is like basically I don't even know how I want to ask it. So I'm gonna jump right in with maybe like a difficult question. It might be a more difficult question, and the question really is like what for you makes QHHT, Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique, so effective?
Effective for the client? Is that how you mean it?
Sure, sure.
Okay. Um, well, that's a great question. I think in my experience so far, what I'll explain. It's really the experience itself that makes it so effective. For those that are open and willing to try this technique, the results can be really validation. I'm putting the healing part aside because not everybody comes for necessarily a physical healing. Everybody has different reasons, obviously, for coming. But for the, I've had clients that have just come for the curiosity side of it, just wanting to understand more about themselves. Um, I can give you an example. I mean, it may sound silly to some people, but I had a client who was totally, and actually I've had a couple clients that have had an obsession, but I've had one client that was totally obsessed their whole life with dolphins. And it was one of their curiosity questions. What draws them? Why are they so drawn? Like they felt it in their soul, in their DNA and everything a part of them. And the question gets asked and the answer is received. And, I could give the answer, which is just that that particular client was in a period of time where dolphins became present. And they're not of this world, is the understanding. So it connected that person to their past life, but it gave them um, that understanding that this goes deep. This goes a long, long time. Like this is why that validation or this is why their dolphin infatuation was existing in them. So I think overall, it really is the experience. Everybody has a different story. Everybody has been through different things. I mean, we can all have a very similar, as Dolores would say, a digging potatoes type of life, a very mundane life. Um, but there is a lesson in that. And I think for me, I already believe that before I found QHHT, I was already a big believer that what we experience in our life has a meaning. Everything happens for a meaning. It's a mantra I've lived my entire life with. So when I got to learn about QHHT and understand better about reincarnation, about past lives, and again, I'm totally leaving the healing component out of it, which is just amazing in and of itself what we can do. Um, but it just resonated so deeply with me because it's true. We experience what we experience for a reason. Um, Getting into QHHT, then I learned that, well, maybe not all the things we experience are just a result of this lifetime. And that fascinates me because it can be related to a life we had, 5 lifetimes ago. And this particular technique can bring that up. It can show you the answers that you need that are for this juncture of your life. And that alone can be healing. And it's growth, it's self-discovery. Um, so I think all in all, the technique is multifaceted, and it can go very deep because then we talk about the healing side of it, which can also be very much related to a past life, because we remember it. Our DNA, our cells, we remember it all. So physically, we might be dealing with something that actually isn't relevant for this life, and we can untangle that. And that's a level of healing that it's kind of like in my opinion, it's a full package. You're getting curiosities answered. You're getting validations for things that you felt or believed in your life, and then which promotes healing, as well as actually having the ability to heal physical conditions that you may have lived with your whole life.
Yeah, in the Convoluted Universe series, I remember that Dolores had a client that she claims had asthma for his whole entire life. And then she did a session with him and tied the asthma back to some different life or something like that. And then they addressed that trauma, excuse me. And then she ran into him a few years later, and she asked him, "Hey, how's your asthma doing?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I used to have asthma. I forgot about that." And yeah, so that's super interesting. And another something that's interesting to me too, and that people listening might find relevant, is that, we talk about this healing, and we talk about healing physical things, and we talk about healing emotional, energetic, all that stuff. But a huge part of it is like the curiosity, like Dolores, when she was inventing this technique, she even admits that a lot of it was just her curiosity. She was very curious about how far she could take this. And I think that most people out there, when they're first drawn to these techniques, a lot of it usually is like curiosity. I mean, for me personally, when I first started getting into this, and I've kind of talked about this a little bit on my show, but I was just curious. I was like, oh, I wonder if I ever had a past life. I don't know. Maybe let's maybe I could find out. And I think that that's a huge component. So if you're there, if you're listening to this and you're there and you're at that point where you're just curious and you're just looking into this, don't be afraid to lean into that curiosity part of it, because that's really where a lot of people will start, and then the healing sometimes can come later, because this subject of hypnosis and quantum healing and all that stuff, it goes pretty deep. And you can get into some really weird stuff. I'm sure that you, Nicole, have run into some pretty weird stuff. I've run into some pretty weird stuff, and I don't even practice QHHT.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I've run into weird things as well as actually pretty traumatic past lives.
Oh my God,
For
yeah.
people. I mean,
Yeah. Tear jerkers.
Yes. Um, so yeah, I think it's a wild journey for both, right? Because as the practitioner, it's you're in this place with them, right? Because you're there kind of as their guide, and as these things are happening, we are in our conscious mind trying to, anyway, I'm trying to like kind of visualize what this part of time and space that the person is in, to help them find the answers that they need, right? And I mean, I've had clients where they're zipping around, and the best way it's another part of time and space, and they're zipping around as a ball of light. And sometimes those cases, so I've had a few clients there, and I remember distinctly one client that was their spirit. They had just left their past life, and they were darting around, and they would stop, and then they would start observing something, and it wasn't their past life, but it was, so having to try to figure out, okay, well, where are you? Well, I don't know. I'm just looking down, and it's, so, and then I had somebody in a kind of like a vortex of energy, and trying to discern, and okay, are they, our mind, we're not there with them, right? We're there listening to them. So trying to help them figure out exactly what time and space they're in, it's challenging. And it means so much more for the client, though. So when those clients had experienced that, they still have those images sometimes when they wake up, and they know, they can explain it better. And that's why I can say, the vortex, because that was what was helping me understand where they were after the session. But yeah, they definitely have some wild journeys.
Yeah,
Um,
and they usually only say, like in my experience anyways, clients usually only say maybe like 40% of what they're actually experiencing, and then later they'll come out and be like, "Oh yeah, actually this is what was happening when I said that." And it's really interesting, and something that I wanted to bring up is that energy ball and the vortex. So, I'm not a practitioner of QHHT. That's not my my interest. I don't do that at all. So anybody listening to this, this might be interesting if you're first starting to get into this. But my second or third session I ever had, again, not QHHT, I experienced that same exact thing. The being like an energy ball. I was like a ball of whatever, and I was just like flying around, and I was like saying some things that I was seeing. Like I saw like a mountain goat and like a cave system with stalagmites and stalactites and all these things. But it was like boom, 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 and I was just like flashing through all these things, basically just like flying around Earth. And the lady that was doing my session was like, "Oh, so are you?" I was like, "I'm just flying around," and she's like, "Oh, are you a bird? Are you like some other kind of creature?" I was like, "No, no, no. I'm just here, right?"
yeah.
And then in a session that I facilitated, again, not QHHT, the lady entered a vortex, and she basically said that she was like in a energy vortex where it was like really weird, where she was like, "Yeah, you know where I am? I'm in the space where energy is right as it's being created, like right as creation is happening, whether it's
Yes.
someone like doing artwork or like writing a song or inventing software. Like I'm in creative energy, and it's like a vortex." And she was like describing this. So it's really interesting that you bring that up, because in this work you see these similarities between sessions. Even if the modality is completely different, clients will experience the same things. So what do you think about that, and what's your explanation for that?
Well, I think that when you're tapping into that higher self of yours, because that exists with you no matter what modality you're in, um, you can still obtain the same type of information. So, meaning that that experience is probably shared by a lot of practitioners out there, because there is truth to that. There is that individual that you were working with had that experience within the outside of the earth plane, right? We're talking, and that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the energy. We're talking about quantum parts of it. And even if you're not doing quantum healing hypnosis technique, you're still working with, I mean, that exists no matter what modality we're doing. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think it actually helps it helps the evidence trail that we are able to get into that state, get those answers, and receive that information from either your individual higher self, or you know I mean, the higher self is connected to the rest of the collective, and the consciousness that's out there. So we get to still receive that information once we're tapping into it. And other modalities can absolutely tap into it, because it kind of just goes back to us as humans and the energy, and how everything is connected. Um, so it makes a lot of sense to me, that we would have similar experiences, because we're still tapping into that energy. It's just a matter of which way and how deep. Some people don't want to go that deep. Some people don't want to, with quantum healing hypnosis technique, the curiosities absolutely exist. Other people can come to dive deeper into their emotional trauma and the life that they've led in this present lifetime, and try to heal and release traumas that they've dealt with in this own lifetime. But then on the flip side, if you're not ready for that, I mean, you don't have to do that in quantum healing in the sense of that being your driver to come here. Like you mentioned before, if you're in that curiosity stage, that's certainly a great step. And a lot of the clients I see have crossed that threshold into that curiosity, and just knowing that there's more to the story, if you will, and that they want those answers. They're seeking those answers now. But then the next level of it is, like I said, going and trying to just grasp this life and the traumas that you've went through in this lifetime. That's a lot of what I get to talk with people about during the interview process, which is this first stage of QHHT. We'll sit and we'll chat, and we're going to chat about this lifetime because this present lifetime is the most important lifetime. This is the one that we're currently in. We're seeking to heal. We're looking for those answers. So trying to rewind there.
There's a lot. There's a lot to
Yes,
talk about
there is.
with this. It gets deep. One thing that you mentioned was like the evidence trail. That's something that like practitioners that are really deep into this, or people who have been doing this for a really really long time, it starts to not matter so much.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I was first starting to get into this, I was all about like, okay, look, we're gonna document this. This is gonna be like, this podcast is gonna be a documentation of this phenomenon. Then as I started to move along in my journey, I was like, well, it's not really as important as I thought it is. It's more about the healing. So, that was really interesting that you brought that up. And I think that for the people who are there, who need that evidence, if you look for it, you're going to get it. And once you get it, you need to trust it, because if you're like me and you get it and then you keep questioning it, it's just going to be pretty self-defeating. It'll really hinder your growth. I'm kind of moving on to, people who might be looking into getting a QHHT session. Can you tell us, and from my understanding, I know that practitioners aren't really allowed to talk about like or share the actual induction process. And for anybody listening, the induction process is like the actual act of being hypnotized or hypnotizing somebody. It's called an induction. And I know that that's kind of proprietary information for practitioners. So excluding that, would you mind talking a little bit about that process? Obviously we start with the interview process. What's that like, and how does it kind of progress, and what are kind of like the stages of QHHT that someone could potentially expect, obviously knowing that they're all going to be a little bit different?
Sure. Okay. Well, the first thing I want to say is that everything I'm about to say is all done in one session. So typically QHHT practitioners are only seeing one client a day. So it is lengthy. So we're together for several hours. So we start that day just primarily for me to get to know my client. Of course, I tell all of my clients that they can ask me any questions that they want about me. If it's relevant and important, I'm always open for any of their questions about me personally. But that's not the reason why we're together. So I usually kind of just get that in the beginning. If they have anything specific that they thought about asking me, we can do that. And then really the interview is about them. Typically I'll start with even though I've already had a phone call with them and spoken with them via email, I'll start it just kind of like we're just meeting for the first time. And the biggest question that I have at the beginning is, what brought you here? why are we talking? Why do you want to talk and do QHHT today? Because that's really important to understand their intent behind it. Because as a practitioner, basically, I'm the facilitator of them when they get to the hypnosis part. So the more I know about you, the better I can advocate for you, and the better I can help you really tackle the most important items for you as a client. So the interview process is relaxed. I tell all my clients, come relaxed. Don't dress up. We're not having a business interview. Just come as you are. It is a relaxing experience. So that's kind of the point. It's a mind, body, and soul healing. You can think about it as, kind of like an advanced meditation. Like, you're just there. We're gonna talk. You'll talk about whatever comes up is what's meant to come up. And then, of course, if they don't cover certain bases, I'm gonna, ask questions. And what I mean by that is, I want to know about their childhood. I want to know, potentially the first memory they've ever had, and how their life looked and how they felt in their life. And because a lot of times we as adults can certainly hold on to things and from our childhood, and sometimes we don't remember. Sometimes we do. Sometimes it's really clear for us that, oh yeah, this happened to me. I'm totally aware. We got to cover this. Let's dig into it. But other times things will come up and it'll almost be surprising. And a lot of times in the interview, we have those epiphanies as we talk, and we're like, all right, this happened then and this happened then. Oh yeah, that's why I do this now. And it's like that aha moment, which is good, right? We want those aha moments because that helps us release that energy and we're no longer holding on to it. So I think the interview is, it's very individual. I have had clients that, didn't know how to start. So again, I help them, I'll guide them in what we want to talk about. And then I've had other clients where they get right in it and they're like, all right, I get to talk about me. Who doesn't really like in an intimate setting to talk about themselves? Because it's the most important thing to us, right? It's nothing good or bad. It's just, it is what it is for us. So we go into that pretty much, it's a variable time. And then before we get into the hypnosis, everybody brings a list of questions. So that's the only pre-work or homework, if you will, that every client should do. You come to the session with questions. And as we talked about at the beginning, they can be curiosity questions. They can be health-related questions. And those are the questions for the subconscious, the higher self. So right before, we don't even look at them until right before the hypnosis. So we always go through them in a conscious state before we get into it. And then the hypnosis itself does not take, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say it that way. The longest that the hypnosis will take is 2 hours. Unless we get permission from the subconscious to go longer, it should always be cut off at 2 hours because it is energy work. So we have, as we're outside of ourselves, if you will, with our energy, we need to, after the hypnosis, we need to ground ourselves. So that could be as simple as having something to eat, right? Just ground yourself, get that energy back into you, and that's a little bit about the end of the session. So after the actual hypnosis, we have time together to discuss, we call it a debrief, talk about what do you remember. I provide an audio recording of it. So I do a little bit of that administration work, if you will, before the client leaves so they can actually leave with the audio um, in hand. And yeah, we kind of ground in that debrief, and we both come back to the current earth.
Yeah, that's super important too. Like sitting there after the fact when people kind of like, I don't like the term wake up because it's, I don't know, that's just not a term that I use, but when they come out of the trance or come out of the hypnosis and come back to the present moment, it is more important than some people think that to talk about it. And sometimes sometimes it's really like the things that you experience are really weird and you need to talk about it. You need to be like sometimes people will be like to me like, man, I that was weird, and I'm like, right. And we'll just kind of talk about it and get it off our chest and kind of discuss like what did you learn, how do you feel, you know what where do we go from here?
Right.
Stuff like that. It's super
Yep.
important to
Yeah.
do that after the session. And you know what is your recommendation, or do you have any recommendations for like after the session, a follow up? Like, okay, all right, you're gonna go home now. Bye bye. Don't watch TV tonight. Eat your vegetables. I don't know, anything like that. Do you have any follow ups for that?
So ultimately, all of my clients, I let them know if they have any questions. The line is always open. If they ever need me after the session, they ever for anything, they can always call me. Um, Aside from that, really, it's about grounding, right? So, you know, the first thing I do want them to do if they haven't brought a snack to the session, which I recommend, beforehand, um, I want them to go have something to eat. Of course, we'll have some water before they leave, at minimum, but I definitely want them to go have something to eat. I give them, the heads up. They might feel a little drained. So it's not something, you don't want to have a QHHT session and then have to go and get into a 3-hour long meeting at work. Like you're going to want to keep your day kind of clear, just because you might be a little drained. The energy work can be draining because it can just take a toll on the physical body. But usually one good night's sleep and you're fine if it is. I myself, I'm speaking from experience because when I started this as a practitioner, I was drained and I would be falling asleep like an hour after my clients were leaving. And so I recognized that and I realized, all right, we have to ground, we have to, be able to not fall asleep an hour after it. So it's really about grounding. The other advice that I will always give with the audio, because they do leave with an audio in hand, it's never anything you should listen to while you're driving. Um, and always recommend, well, to listen to it, because the beautiful thing also about this is that you will, when you're in QHHT, you're connecting both parts of you, right? So you're connecting your conscious mind with your subconscious in a way that you may have never done before. So that alone provides healing, and that provides a spiritual growth. So what happens is you've made that connection. So basically think of it like this. For especially for first timers out there. You're walking life, all of a sudden you start having curiosities and you're like, all right, this sounds a little interesting. Let me check it out. we do your research and everything like that. But the day that you come, what I have seen, both personal experience of for doing the sessions myself, for me, as well as for other people, is that it's kind of like you're giving that green light and you're saying, "Hey, I am totally open and I am ready to receive and I am ready to connect." That alone is powerful. And then when you listen to that audio again, two points here. You're continuing that connection. So you're saying, "Yes, I'm serious. I really do want to be connected with you." And that barrier starts to break down between those two parts. The other thing that it's important to listen to that audio is because even if you come out of the hypnosis and you feel like, "Yes, I remember everything that we just spoke about for those 2 hours." You could very well be correct. However, when you're listening back to it, the way in which you say something and then you hear it back, it clicks differently, it provides a different level of healing, and then you continue on that healing part of that journey.
You're in a
So
different perspective.
yes.
Like when you're in a hypnosis, you're in a completely different state than you are when
Yes.
you're like consciously moving around. Like your literal brain waves are different. And
Yes.
so like the way you're going to perceive information is totally different than when you're conscious. Fully
Exactly.
conscious, I should say. Because you're still
Yes.
conscious when you're under hypnosis. But like when you're fully in like the beta brainwave like we are now
Mhm.
versus like the delta almost or
We
almost
go to
yeah, like
theta.
theta. Yeah, theta.
Yeah.
The delta's like deep sleep, but like
Yeah.
yeah, then like when you're in like the deep theta state, you perceive information totally differently. So yeah, I
Right.
can see why that would be helpful to listen to that after the
Yeah.
fact as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah, and that part of it, I I I do know that not everybody follows through with that because I know it can be hard because now you're saying, "All right, now I'm in my day-to-day life and I have to put aside 2 hours to listen to something I just experienced." Um, but it is in good practice to, do that. So I always explain that to my clients and I always remind them of that before they leave. Um, but ultimately, in terms of after the session, it can very much be a one and done experience. It doesn't have to be. The way I look at it, because I know where I know I'm hearing Dolores, and I know that a lot of what she did, especially in the early years, was really exploration. And she stumbled across this. So a lot of the work that she did was for that evidence. Was to, she would hear historical things, she would check it out, does this jive? So she has had obviously a very different journey in being a practitioner. Um, but on one side of the coin, we can say, which is what Dolores would say, is that you only need one QHHT session for your healing. But what I see and what I've realized at this point, I think that's really true for the reason that you first come, right? So if you're coming, let's use the asthma. If you're coming to me and one of your physical problems is asthma, and we clear that up, and that's all great, and it never comes back, but then maybe 2 years down the road, something else happens. I don't wanna speak of anything physical because I don't wanna put it out there, but something else can happen, right, that you didn't have before. So I think really it would be more logical to say you should only have to go for that problem, that pain point one time. If we dig it up and we heal it, you should be good to go at that point on. But life is a journey. So your next experience can give you another trauma, another physical ailment, something that didn't appear until a different time of your life. Um, so at this juncture, I have seen clients just one time. The lines of communication are always open. I've met people as my clients that um, we've had. We started like a different phase of our relationship. It's a more of an acquaintance type relationship. I don't want to say it's like a friend. Um, but they've introduced me to things. It's been very interesting actually on that front of it. As much as they come to me for something, they have also brought something for me in my growth and my everyday life.
Yeah, you're learning right along with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's how I felt too when when I was doing this a lot more. I was like, man, I'm learning just as much as you are. You
Mhm.
know, um, I have a potentially a difficult question to ask you if you're okay with that.
Okay.
And it's just kind of me playing devil's advocate, and it's gonna be kind of a doozy.
Okay.
Okay, so I hope you're ready for it.
I'm ready.
So I I am a moderator on Reddit. I don't know if you're familiar with Reddit a lot, but I manage a few different forums on there. And multiple times, and there's like a Dolores Cannon subreddit, like a Dolores Cannon forum on there. And
Okay.
I follow that. I don't moderate that one, but I've seen posts in that subreddit, in the QHHT subreddit, which I don't moderate, but I do reincarnation and past lives for sure. I've seen this question in all four of these places. And basically the question goes like this. They they make a post and they say, "Okay, look, I just had my first QHHT session and I felt like it didn't work. I
Okay.
felt like I went there, I paid this money to go see and have this session. The practitioner, like every single time, it's like almost a copy paste. Like the practitioner was so great. They were trying so hard to make me comfortable and all this stuff. But I just felt like I wasn't under hypnosis. I felt like it was just a huge letdown. And now I'm questioning my own belief system. Right? It's like a super common thing. I've seen it over and over and over and over again. And I wonder what your take on that is like what do you think the cause of that is? Because it happens quite a bit on these forums where people are like, I'm questioning my own belief system. I had total faith in Dolores Cannon.
Mhm.
I was all in, and then I finally did it, and I just couldn't get there. I couldn't get into hypnosis. What's the deal? So what do you think about that? What's your take on that?
Okay. So couple of different things there. So I'll say right off the bat, um,
I know it was kind of a difficult question. I'm sorry.
no, it's okay. It's a good question, and I do have an answer. I mean, I don't. I'm hesitant on saying this one because you know I don't want, even in a case like that, I don't want people to put themselves in this category. The category I'm speaking of is that there are cases that it won't work for some people. It's a smaller part of the population. Um, the scientific understanding of that is really the way our brain works. So we can call it left brained, we can call it I'm going to talk a little bit about ego in a second. Um, the the part of the brain that allows for the easement of hypnosis is the right side of the brain. It is the creative side of the brain. And because we all have different energy, some people are really, really strong on that left side of the brain, which is the logic. It's the mathematics part. And sometimes people, and it's the ego part, right? So sometimes that's too difficult for a person to truly relax. The belief system could very well be there. That's where I'm going to go when I'm going to go into ego, because ego is critical for us as humans. We need ego. We need our subconscious. We need both. So when I was talking a little bit before about merging both together, that's really what I'm talking about. And we need ego and we need subconsciousness, to play. We need them to play together. And that's people that are struggling and maybe are heavier on the ego side. That's a lot of the what we try to do as practitioner is we try to help them to just relax a little bit. Ego needs to be there. Ego can be there. We just want you to play together. We want everybody to come together and let this experience happen. Now, I've had people where they didn't get there. As I grow as a practitioner, I can look back on those cases and be like, oh, okay, I can do this differently next time, and I can improve on that. So it's not unheard of. Even the strongest believer can have that experience. What I would say, though, is not to give up, because that one experience doesn't mean you can't get there. It just means that you're a little stronger on the one side than you are the other.
You spend more time in the beta section of your brain.
Right.
Yeah, like
Exactly.
the conscious thinking thoughts. Yeah.
Exactly. So really, you never want to have expectations going into it, because you know, and that's for anything. You don't want to expect, okay, I'm going to see 3 past lives and I'm going to, no expectations. You got to flow with it, right? That's the key, and you have to flow with it. Now, in my experience so far, what I can share about what I've seen with people that have had a harder time getting into that hypnosis state, our egos, they're our protector, right? So I think I'm pretty sure I can say almost every client that I've had that hasn't been able to get into that hypnosis state are people that have had very traumatic lives in the past, or are currently going through something pretty traumatic. When we're in that survival, doesn't have to be, it can be harder to get into that flow, into that relaxation, to allow for the reception of the other information that we're seeking, right? Because that's the hypnosis part. We're seeking information, so we need to be able to receive it. So I think that has a lot to do with it. And if you can't, people in situations like that, I've also, if they're going to come back to me to do it again, which I always encourage, I also give them tips because they could be, fresh into it, right? Just started with that curiosity, never meditated before in their life, and that could have an impact too, because you want to and you need to be in the space where you can let it flow. And if you've been so wrapped up and going, 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 and you're in this trauma-filled world that of yours, it can be difficult to let go. And I completely can see that and understand that, and even resonate with that. So it's always, especially as a practitioner too, when it doesn't happen, my heart just breaks, especially when I know the person has been waiting for it and waiting for it and waiting for it. And then I'm like, oh, we tried our best and it just didn't happen today. It's heartbreaking because I know where that leads. I know exactly, even the question that you asked me, I mean, that's exactly where it leads. They start questioning their belief
Yeah,
system.
and it's a hard question too. I really put you on the spot there, but I really liked your answer, especially the part where you were saying that the left brain and the right brain, they have to play together.
Mhm.
And so to break it down to my audience from my perspective as well, and I've had this, I had a person that just so you know, I'll tell you this story.
Okay.
I had a person that asked that question and posted on one of the subreddits, and I saw them, and for whatever reason I felt compelled, and I actually had her on my podcast after the fact. But I had her on. I felt compelled to message her, and I was like, "Hey, look, I'm really sorry that happened to you, right? And I'd like to try to help you get into the hypnosis." And one of the things that she told me and I bet you that a lot of people, the part of the problem is this right here is she was like, I felt like I was just making it up the whole time. I felt like
Mm,
I was just making it up and that it wasn't real. Now, what you said about the left brain and the right brain playing together is super important. So to anybody out there who feels this way or has had this same experience where they went to QHHT, they went to somebody who does life between life, or whatever, and you're like, man, I just felt like I was making it up the whole time. Well, here's the solution. Just say whatever you're making up. It's okay to just make stuff up because eventually, once you get used to that other side of the brain's going to come together with you and it's going to start balancing each other out. You have to have that imagination. You have to have that creativity in order to get into the state of hypnosis where you're going to see past lives. So if you feel like you're making it up, good,
mhm.
because you need that part of your brain in order to get to that deep theta state that we mentioned earlier, because the way that brain waves work is you have beta, alpha, theta, delta. And then there's one more below that, but we don't need to talk about that. But you want to get deep into theta, but theta is like, it's like almost like if you're falling asleep and you start to
Mhm.
have a dream and then you wake up. That's where theta is.
Yep.
That's you're entering theta. You can't have dreams without that creative part of your brain. So if you're in that state where you're like, "Oh god, I'm making this up." Well, that's great. You just hit the first step that you need to be at. Lean into that, and if you lean into that making it up and you say like the weird things and you just trust yourself to say whatever's coming through, odds are you're going to have a lot more of a successful session than if you're like, "Oh man, god, I feel like I'm making it up." And if you feel like you're making it up, say it to your practitioner. Ah,
Right.
man, this is ridiculous. I feel like I'm making it up. Because then they can tell you, look, that's great. You're
Yep.
doing it right. You're making it up. You need to make stuff up sometimes. You need that part of your brain to get to this point. So I really like that answer where those two parts of your brain have to come together and work together, because without the the creative side, you're going to be stuck in thinking about everything, and without the logical side, you're just going to be dreaming.
Right.
basically. So you need both of those to come together.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Thank you so much for that answer. I think that was like such a good way. You really explained it very, very well. And I'm sorry for putting you on the spot like that. It really was like a difficult question to ask. And but you did really good. You did
Thank
really
you.
good. Well, we've been talking for a little while now, Nicole. Let's talk about you. Let's talk about your practice, your business. How can people get a hold of you if they want to ask about a session or book a session or what do you got going on?
Sure. So for me, I am, just starting out in my practice. So I don't have my own website yet today. However, the QHHT website, which is QHHTofficial.com, that is, think about it as we all have insurance. And when we need to go for a provider, we go to our insurance and find a provider. It's the similar thing. You want to go and find a QHHT practitioner. You go to the QHHTofficial.com. There's a drop down where you can search for providers. They're all over the world. So obviously, as I said at the beginning, I'm in New Jersey. But this is a technique that I just, I've said it to so many people. I want everybody to try it. Like I really think it is so beautiful and so helpful and so healing that obviously you can tell I'm passionate about it. So that's the official network. You can also, find other information about QHHT, Dolores's journey, any information like that. For me personally, I have I have a phone number, but I also have email and I have an Instagram page. My Instagram page is a little long, but it's Soul Rebel Healing Holistically, which is also the name of my business. So Soul Rebel Healing Holistically on Instagram. And then my email would be soulrebelhh@yahoo.com. So those are the ways that currently that you can get a hold of me if you are listening and you're near me somewhere in New Jersey. And then eventually I will have a website, but of course, I'll be updating all of that on my Instagram page. And the QHHT, because there is a section that has a little bit of bio about me, which also has my email address. So if you don't write it down or you don't remember, you can always find it on the official QHHT website.
Perfect. Well, definitely head over to Soul Rebel Healing Holistically on Instagram. Drop Nicole a follow for her coming onto the show and sharing her information with us about QHHT and answering that really difficult question that I hit her with. And if you're interested in booking a session with her, definitely hit her up on her email. All that stuff's going to be included in the description of this episode. So please head over, give her a follow, give her some love. And Nicole, I'm going to put you on the spot again and say, do you have any parting words? Do you have any words of wisdom? Something that you feel drawn to say to somebody out there before we wrap this up?
Well, I think, as I would tell you if you were a client of mine, was to say the first thing that comes to mind. So first thing that comes to mind is to trust yourself. Trust those gut instincts, those intuition nudges, whether it be guiding you to QHHT or seeking out a medium, or even just if you're new to this, start researching it. There's so much information out there. There's so much truth. And when you find what resonates with you, you will know it.
Those are very wise words. Thank you so much, Nicole, for coming on to the show. I really enjoyed talking to you and listening to your perspectives on all of these things.
Well, thank you so much, Ian, for having me. I was very happy to have this connection with you.
That's it for today's episode. I'd like to give a big thanks to Nicole for coming onto the show and putting up with my difficult questions and my rabbit holes that I tend to go down on this show. And a big thanks to you for tuning in and listening to the whole episode. I hope that you got something out of it. I hope that it was relevant to you. And don't forget that if you are one of those first 3 people that hear this show that want to do a free past life regression and release it to the world, shoot me an email. I would love to have you come on and work with you and get some past life work done. And then secondly, if you are a practitioner or if you have a take that you want to share or you have something that you want to share with my audience, shoot me an email and let me know, because I would love to have you on. I want to talk about all kinds of things on this show. And that means if like you're a practitioner or a tarot card reader or a shaman or a bishop or whatever, shoot me an email and let's talk about getting you on the show. The email is theregressionsession@gmail.com, and I would love to have you on my show.
I just wanna go.
Some cats, you might see them come by.
I like cats most of the time, but sometimes they're really difficult creatures to get along with. You know what I mean?
Yes.
They'll look at you and be like, I'm better than you.
Yeah, they have attitude, right?
They do. You know, I'm not a dog person. I actually don't like dogs.
Okay.
And you know what's interesting about cat people is, like, if you tell someone that you don't like cats, they're like, oh yeah, I get that. You know, most cat people are just like, yeah, I get that. That makes sense. That's okay. But if you tell a dog person, like if you tell someone that you don't like dogs, they're like, what is your problem?
Uh-huh.
Like, you're going to hell.
It's true.
And it's like, would your dog say that? I don't think so.
That's very true. That is so true. Yeah, it's like socially acceptable to not like cats, but
not dogs.
The second you say anything negative about a dog, it's like you're heartless. And
yeah, I've literally had people tell me that they're like, you're heartless, and I'm like, no, I'm not. I just like to have a yard.
Yeah,
Thanks.
well, yeah, I have a dog. Also,
how's your yard?
That's terrible.
Yeah, see. Oh, here, I'm actually going to stop recording.